Global markets reeling as US President Donald Trump warns of more tariffs, this time targeting China. Trade officials working out how they can protect themselves from the worst of the impact. For ASEAN, this could entail a multi-pronged approach. That means beefing up internal trade deals while expanding external engagement. Current ASEAN chair Malaysia saying concern over tariffs from the Trump administration overshadowing discussions by economic ministers earlier today. The latest US plan for another 10% hike in tariffs on China announced just as the ministers gathered for their retreat in Desaru, Malaysia. And for more, the CNA's Leong Wai Kit joins us live from Johor Bahru. Wai Kit, as we just mentioned, those ministers meeting as news was announced of this 10% hike that should go into effect next Tuesday on Chinese imports from US. So ASEAN, as we mentioned, this concern creeping into every discussion at the economic ministers' retreat. What did they come up with specifically to cushion themselves from the impact of these possible tariffs?
Well, various measures, Wei Su, and you can understand naturally why ASEAN is concerned, because there are some ASEAN member states which have trade deficits with Washington, which experts say will allow them to be, to avoid being in Washington's tariff list. But there are also ASEAN member states which have trade surpluses. Now, earlier at the media conference, I spoke to Malaysia's economy minister, who is in charge of the economy, and I asked him, given that ASEAN needs to be relevant and responsive to all these geopolitical and economic uncertainties, what would ASEAN do if those tariffs directly affect the region? Let's take a listen to what he said.
Regarding the US, of course, we have agreed that the senior officials, the high-level task force, together with another working group, a special task force, to look and advise the ASEAN economic ministers on possible scenarios. But what's important is engagement. And it's not just about tariff, right? Engagement should be under areas such as, covering areas such as trade, strategic minerals, talking about supply chain resiliency, and also talking about technology security.
And on that note of engagement, ASEAN will be planning a very first summit with partners from the Middle East and China, and that's slated to happen later this year in May.
All right, Wai Kit, quoting the Malaysian minister there, it's not just about tariffs, right? So there are many other areas in which ASEAN can work together and develop its economic potential. Oh, they held a press conference earlier. What else did they have to say?
Yeah, so in the media conference, the Minister Tengku Zafrul highlighted nearly 20 key economic priorities that will be their deliverables. But, what really stood out for me are two things. One, there are plans to upgrade a deal within ASEAN that's already in place. It's called ATIGA, and that deal does the exact opposite from what Washington is doing. It allows ASEAN members to trade within themselves without trade barriers. That's in place, like I said, but an upgrade of that deal would mean potentially making the deal more modern, as well as allowing it to cover emerging areas such as digital, as well as in the event of a crisis. The other thing is that they're planning to wrap up talks on what's known as the world's first digital economy framework agreement, and that kind of boosts ASEAN's standing, ASEAN's collaboration and progress on digital sector. But there are, of course, challenges. Malaysia's economy minister said that in terms of development, all 10 countries have varying levels. So he's been asking his colleagues to be more flexible in that approach.
Oh, thanks to that. Leong Wai Kit, they're reporting live from Johor after the economic ministers, ASEAN ministers meeting in Desaru today for their retreat.